get to see a beautiful program tonight, but our community is extra special. Lucky we get to hear from two community members in person. So I would like to invite a dear friend who will talk to us a little bit about how she faces life's challenges unfazed and how Judaism keeps her grounded throughout the ups and downs of life. So without further ado, Leah. Mendy.
Hi everyone. My name is Leah, and I was quite honored and rather befuddled as to why I was asked to do this, why I was asked to come and speak. I didn't really think that my story was unique or really all that relevant. I don't know, I just felt like there's so many people who are part of this community who are searching for their roots, searching for new identity, because their soul is really crying out for the ability to have a spiritual path. And I think there's such an emptiness that so many people feel, but they can't quite describe it. They don't really know how to explain what is missing. And I have to say that I was kind of one of those people. Just briefly, my background is that I'm the daughter of first generation American parents. My grandparents all came from either Hungary or Russia. And when they came to this country, they came like so many other people. They were just, they were arriving with just barely whatever they had on their backs. And my father's father from Hungary was the only survivor from his family after the Holocaust, and he was never able to recover from that. He was just really grief-stricken, and he had so much guilt that he couldn't share, even with his own children, history. So as a consequence, we, as the next generation, know very little. But in fact, I have learned that in my heritage, there are rabbis. And now it's a matter of my trying to find them. And I just actually discovered where my grandparents are buried. And I would really like to go visit them. At any rate, my parents were ardent Zionists. And I remember from the time I was like 3 or 4, sitting on the floor next to the, in the hall where I was supposed to be asleep, but I was actually listening to meetings that were at the house, and they brought people to speak, and they were very involved in tree planting and you name it for Israel. And that was really my kind of my introduction to what I thought Judaism was. And in fact, that really was how my parents conveyed Judaism to us, to my sister and to me. And I always felt from the time I was quite little that there was something about being Jewish that I couldn't put my finger on, but that I wasn't getting at home. And my parents, while they were such advocates of Israel, and in fact we were to make Aliyah in 1967 to a kibbutz in Israel, and then with the war everything kind of collapsed. They never made it. They never made it to Israel. But in spite of that background, I felt a tremendous emptiness, like a gap in my life, but I couldn't put my finger on it. I really had no idea how to express that. But there were moments in my life that were pinnacle. They were the gestation of something that I wanted for myself that I had not been able to really identify. I started studying Hebrew with a wonderful man by the name of Israel Gutkin when I was 8. And I continued to study in spite of the fact that my family just was not into what I was doing. So I began to explore for myself, and then after a while, and after being in Zionist youth camps, etc., I ended up going to Israel finally 4 years ago, three and a half years ago. And I actually went to the kibbutz where my parents had hoped to be, and what I got in Israel was finally a sense that I was home. And I couldn't identify what that feeling was, but just that I felt like I was where I needed to be. At the same time, I had been feeling kind of an emptiness spiritually, and thinking that Judaism was an intellectual way of being in religion as opposed to spiritual. And I had pretty much convinced myself that there were probably other ways that I could be experience spirituality. So I went to Buddhist retreats, I went to Hindu retreats, I stayed silent for 10 days. That was really hard, but I actually did like that. And again, there was just something nagging at me. And then I guess it was about three and a half years ago that circumstances did not lead me. I led those circumstances to arrive here. And I was looking for, I knew that I wanted something that was religious, that was observant, and that perhaps would be beyond my comfort level, because I didn't grow up that way. So I was drawn to this community, and in fact I still come here from Hillcrest, and we have Chabad, we have other Chabads, but this particular community has truly, I feel, taken me under the wing. And even though I'm older than every single one of you in the room, probably, oh yeah,
no way.
I've really discovered that through Hasidus, through Chabad, my sense of self has really evolved. And I had like everybody, I had a particularly hard year last year, and I had some really difficult times personally, and it really was through my connection to Chabad that I felt like I was finally filling a need from within. It was not too long ago, about a year and a half ago, Rabbi knew that I was going through some pretty rough times, and he recommended that I look into a retreat called Beis Chana. And Beis Chana is part of the whole Chabad education, and was really started and influenced by the Rabbi, and then taken on by Rabbi Manis Friedman. And it's a women's Judaic educational program through Hasidus. And the thing is that the retreat was to start the next day, and I really didn't think I was going to be able to do it. And it was a 3-day virtual retreat. And somehow I managed to do it. And that really, between that and being part of this community, I really think kept me going. And now I study with Beis Hana 3 times a week with women from all over the world. And I would say that what I have gotten from my experience in listening to, what was her name again? The woman she just spoke. Oh my gosh. Micha. The way she expressed how Hasidus has opened up a world of wonder is how I have experienced my kind of coming back into Judaism from a different angle. Everyone who knows me from years ago are shocked. Oh my God, you're with an Orthodox and keeping a kosher kitchen. I mean, these were all things that I had never done. And now, as I'm kind of growing into it, I have truly an appreciation for what the Rebbe. I think what I really feel I've gleaned about the Rebbe is that he gave us a precious gift of himself. He was probably one of the first Jewish leaders to be able to reach every individual personally in such a way that one felt not only special, but that they had something to contribute to the world. And I feel like his love for all Jews, his compassion, his outreach, his inclusivity, how he created leaders. He didn't want followers, he wanted leaders, that every single person, all of us in this room, could be one of those leaders, and in our own ways we are. I think that his love for us as a people and belief in us as individuals is probably the strongest contribution I can imagine anyone giving to the world. And I think that our celebrating the Rebbe's life tonight it's a symbol of our commitment as a people to continue to share and to inspire others and our children and our children's children in a beautiful, beautiful, ancient religion. And I'm just very happy to be part of it. Thank you.
I'm honored to introduce now our next speaker, a dear friend was privileged to meet about 2.5 years ago or so, 2 years ago, and Leah, who is a true inspiration. And we never know where our mission is in life, but just last month Leo posted a post on LinkedIn, and that post had reached, as of now, over 300,000 people, or well over 200,000 people. He got over 8,000 likes and hundreds of shares, and he was able to inspire hundreds of thousands with his story, and we are privileged to have you here today to inspire us and share some words. Please, Leah.
Thank you, Rabbi. Dear friends, I'm honored to be invited to speak here. It's been a long journey for me, and Judaism has touched my life and the lives of my family and friends in many ways. I originally thought that in 2013, when I was suffering from PTSD and I wanted to kill myself, that I found this article online, how far do I need to go to return a lost object from Chabad.org, and at that time I didn't know what Chabad meant. And I read this article, and I thought that if a group of people can put so much value in something that's inanimate, that doesn't have life, how much more love would there be for someone, a person or a pet? So I started studying every single day from 2013. I was born, and I thought this is the journey, but my journey goes way before that. I was born in the Philippines. I was born and raised Catholic. Under martial law, grew up, saw a lot of massacres. Even though my father was a lawyer, was a poor man, worked himself up to be a lawyer, and my mother was a nurse, I suffered greatly as a child. I remember that when I was 5 years old, I was sexually abused by someone who took care of us. I apologize. And my godmother, Catholic godmother, who was also my first grade teacher, when I did something wrong in class, she made me stand with books in front of the whole class until I got tired, until I cried. And when I got too tired, she would hit my hands and I would have to come up. And another time, she made me kneel in front of the whole class on corn, dry corn kernels. This was my godmother, good friends with my mother. I was afraid to tell my mother. Then I was also an altar boy for the Catholic Church. But one day when I was 8 years old, I wasn't on duty, so I was sitting at the pews. There were kids behind me who were talking, so I knew the priest, who was Spanish, who could barely speak our dialect, came from Spain. I told him to quiet down, and he thought I was the one talking. So he brought me to the front of the whole church, about 200 people, and I thought he was going to congratulate me. But he slapped me in front of the whole church. I was so ashamed, I was so confused, and no one helped me. The nuns, my godfather who was a judge, the policemen who were there, the teachers who were there, my friends, no one helped me. He made me walk back to my chair, and I sat there. I wanted to leave, but at the same time I didn't know where to go. I never told my parents. And throughout, when I was in the 4th grade, 5th grade, got abused by teachers as well, physically abused. And then in 2013, we immigrated here to the U.S. And because we were poor immigrants, we lived in National City in federally subsidized housing. And in that area, I was often bullied. I could barely speak the language. I didn't know the culture. And so I started to hang out with the gangs so that nobody would beat me up. But that led to more choices, bad choices. And when I was 16, a few kids and myself, we left high school, and they got me drunk, and they tattooed a green dot on my forehead. It's still there today. I didn't know how to fight back. I didn't know who to tell. I hated myself. I hated looking at myself. I hated looking at this dot. And I started getting a lot of acne. And I thought that was a good way to hide the dot. I was so ashamed of it. It's still there today. Did finish high school, even though I was an honor student. Ended up getting a GED, and then a few years later I joined the Army. The Army at that time saved my life. Then I tried out for Special Forces selection to become a Green Beret. And I wasn't in good shape. It took me months to prepare, and I failed that twice. It's one of the hardest courses in the military. I failed twice. I got laughed at twice by my members of my unit. And I was so ashamed. I felt like I was ashamed of my GED the entire time. And I was ashamed of failure. And then I finally made it on the third try. And then I became a demolitions man. I was stationed in Fort Lewis, Washington. And after 9/11, 3 weeks after 9/11, I was in the Philippines to go after the Abu Sayyaf group that had kidnapped Americans and beheaded one. And that's where I was born, in southern Philippines, in Mindanao. I still speak the dialect. So I was proud of that. And then I served in a counter-terrorist unit for Asia. And then after one tour, they said, Leo, we need someone to speak Arabic because we're in an Asian theater. So they said, we want to send you to Arabic language school for 18 months, then I'll make sure you come back to this unit. So I did. I brought my family. And at that time, I barely saw my family after 9/11. My youngest son, I saw him for 6 weeks for his first 2.5 years of his life, and we never became very close. And while I was in Arabic language school, 2 of my friends in Delta Force died who were in the same teams with me. One was Obadiah Kolath. He died in August 2005. And then Joe Andres, he died on December 24th, 2005. And I promised myself that I would learn and master the Arabic language so I can find the people who killed my friends. And I would have books. Every Friday I would have stacks of paper because I would write the Arabic word and the English word. I would keep writing the Arabic until I didn't have to think whether it was English or Arabic. I finished a 1.5 years later with almost a native proficiency, and 6 months later I was sent to Iraq in 2007 during the Iraqi surge. We had lost control of the country, and they sent us. We did missions every single night for 5 months, captured over 700 terrorists. A lot of those missions I went because I was the only one person who spoke Arabic, but it crushed my soul. There's a part of me that experience, it brought back memories as a child under martial law, and I know there was a good reason for me being there. Every time I went on a mission, it took away a piece of my soul. Then I got medically retired after 21 years, and it just so happened that we had bought our first ever home in North Carolina in a golf course community. We were going to retire there. But across the street were drug dealers and criminals we didn't know about, even though it was a nice neighborhood. And we began to turn them in. They started getting arrested. And then my reports were compromised by the police. They knew exactly who was turning them in. And here I am, severely bad PTSD, traumatic brain injuries, multiple injuries, and I'm dealing with criminals across the street who know that I put them in jail. Gangsters, lowriders, crack dealers. And it hurt me. I was prosecuted twice for threatening them. We stayed for 6 years and I prayed for them. I was Catholic at the time. I prayed for them. They never changed. And my lawyer said, you have to move because you're going to end up going to prison. So in 2015, we left North Carolina. We left our whole house, wherever. We took everything. We moved across the country. It took us 7 days. And we moved to a one-bedroom apartment because we couldn't afford the rent, the mortgage back home, and the storage. We ended up giving away most of our things. And at the same time, my hips were going bad, and I went to the Navy for help. And they said they wanted to wait till I was 60 to change my hips. I was already in severe pain. I know Leah, Rachel, you know Pam, you've seen me where I couldn't walk for 2.5 years. I was on crutches. So I had to fight. Not only I lost my health serving the army, we lost our home, defending the community. Now I was fighting the system for proper medical care. I fell into depression, became suicidal. I went into the inpatient psych ward because I was either going to kill myself or kill somebody else. I felt so worthless, and I felt like the 5-year-old kid again who, because I was always on crutches, I could no longer defend myself. I felt like people were going to come up behind me and abuse me just like I was abused when I was a kid. And then I was very, very suicidal in December 2017. I called Steve Goldkrantz. He talked to me for about 1.5 hours. And then I called Mission 22, and Mission 22 said, go to Save a Warrior. And I'm still studying Judaism at this time. So I went to Save a Warrior, and little did I know it was at Camp His Kramer at Malibu, a Jewish summer camp. And in a Jewish summer camp, I cried for 5 days, and I grieved my past. I grieved my military history. I grieved losing our home. And I grieved and I forgave myself for thinking badly of myself for all those years. And my healing began, and the founder of Save a Warrior is half Irish Catholic and half Russian Jew. His name is Jake Clark. Saved my life for free. I love him. My kids called 3 weeks after I graduated, and they said at 10:30 at night, they said, thank you for saving my dad, because we thought it was just another VA program. After 2 days he'll be back to normal, angry. And he said, my kids said thank you for saving my dad's life. And then that was 2018, and my family and I went to a PTSD retreat for 6 days in Colorado to finally heal. But there was so much trauma, the kids, my wife. We didn't finish, they left on day 4. I was so ashamed. I was the only person there without a family. I cried at this top of this mountain, and I left on day 5. And Rabbi, I have to thank you for all your notes. I saved all your notes, all your little sticky notes, because there had been moments where the empowerment came from those notes. And so they asked me to move out. My friend said, no, don't move out, that's your money. And I said, no, they need space. They didn't sign up for this PTSD. I didn't have to fight the criminals. They were just along for the ride. So I need to give them space. I need to swallow my pride. And this is something I learned from Judaism. And so I found a job in Ventura California in August of 2019. And my first stop there, because I didn't have a room or a hotel, I slept in the parking lot at the Ventura County beach. I felt so, I was sleeping, I heard the kids and the families, I was so alone, I felt so dejected. Then I finally found a hotel for a few days, and then I found a place to stay, and I was going to Walmart to buy a few things. This Jewish gentleman called me. He said, "You found a room yet?" I said, "Yeah, I'm about to sign the lease." He goes, "I got a room for you. You come stay with me." His name is Bert Frazier. He's a retired lawyer in Oxnard. And he took me in, and I rented a room. But what he taught me was, he was already a widow, and he would buy flowers every single week. I said, "Bert, why do you buy flowers?" He goes, "I used to buy them for my wife, and now I buy them for me." And so I slowly worked my way back to the family. I buy flowers every week for my wife. I don't miss a week. And Bert taught me how to deal with my sons. And I followed Bert's suggestions. And now we haven't argued in a year and a half. There's a lot of love. Now my son makes sure that when he gets a hamburger at In-N-Out, there's no cheese. My wife knows that to separate items that have blood. They respect me for my journey, and I've learned to respect them, because initially I was really strict, like none of that is in the house. But they're still Christian, and I learned that I had to accept their journey as well. It doesn't take away from my journey. And so where I slept in Ventura County, the graduation was there on May 15, 2021 for my second master's degree. And it was also my 22nd, the day of graduation was also my 22nd wedding anniversary. And I have to thank Yehuda Sherpin. And I thank all of you. I thank you, Rabbi, for having me here and letting me share my story.